2022 college football team schedule previews. I'm doing a whole series of these videos. There's a playlist on the channel. You can find it and click on it. It'll pull up a list of all the teams that I've done so far. I'm going to do as many teams as I can throughout the month of April. I'm getting these teams off of the Patreon page. There's a post over there. So if you're on the Patreon page, make sure you go check that post out. Find the post, leave a comment of what team you want to see me do. Once I finish up everything over on the Patreon page, then I'll come back to these videos, scroll through the comments, and start doing suggestions from everybody else that's wanting me to do this team or that team or whatever the case may be. But up today is the Kentucky Wildcats. Just gave Mark Stoops a big raise and extension, and he earned it. What he's done at Kentucky. Well, let me ask, is what Mark Stoops is doing at Kentucky right now more impressive than what James Franklin did at Vandy? I think it probably is, because Mark Stoops is doing it for a longer period of time. You know, James Franklin won, what, 9 games a couple of years in a row or something at Vandy, which is, I don't know if anyone will ever do that again in my lifetime. I mean, that's, you can't understate how big of a deal that is. But Mark Stoops at Kentucky's got him winning 10 games, several times ranked within the top 15. Beat Florida a couple of times, in which, you know, there was a point in time not that long ago where Florida had beat Kentucky something like 32 years in a row or something. What Mark Stoops is doing at Kentucky is a big deal. They were 10-3 last year, and if it wouldn't have been for a stretch of games in the middle of the season where they kind of just couldn't get out of their own way, they had a bad middle of the season. They could have had more wins, possibly. They were undefeated about halfway through the season when they took a trip to Athens, Georgia to play the Dogs, who were ranked number 1 at the time, and Georgia jumped out and just kind of got all over them. Kentucky's a big lines of scrimmage, big running backs, ground and pound. They don't really air it out a lot, and that's just not really a matchup that suits well against a team like Georgia. You can't really run the ball on Georgia. You have to use the pass really to open up the run, whereas traditionally you run to open up the pass. It's very hard to run on Georgia, and Kentucky was just never really able to get going in that game. And they lost 30-13. Now they had a bye week after that, which was good because Kentucky was undefeated, and they take the big loss, emotional loss to Georgia. It was good to have a bye week to sort of let that settle, put it behind you, and move on. At least that's what you thought was going to happen. But then they come out and they lose on the road at Mississippi State, 31-17, a game where, I mean, they did not look good in that game at all. And then lost to Tennessee the week after that, 45-42, in a great game, back and forth thing. But 3 losses in a row there, right in the middle of the season in October. It was only 3 losses they had. They lost those 3 in the row, and then they finished out the season with wins at Vandy, home against New Mexico State, and the rivalry game at Louisville. Ended up making it to the Citrus Bowl, where they beat Iowa 20-17. Still a pretty good season for Kentucky, but they look back on that and they say, you know, what could have been type of thing. They should not have lost to Mississippi State, and they should not have lost to Tennessee, and they did. And they finished 10-3. The Georgia loss is kind of expected. It was a road game. Of course, Georgia was really good, so that's excusable. The Mississippi State and the Tennessee loss kind of caught people by surprise. So what can they do in 2022? Can they do better than 10-3? It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to do better than 10-3. This isn't a prediction video. I do prediction videos starting in June, so this is just a look at the schedule. How hard is it compared to last year's? What are the non-con games? What does the conference schedule look like? You know, where's the road games? Where's the home games? Bye weeks, are there any trap games, things like that. It's going to be difficult for Kentucky to improve on that 10-3 record, but we'll take a look at the schedule and see what kind of chance they might have at doing it. Now, they open up with a non-con opponent, Miami of Ohio, and that's a game you would think Kentucky could win, right? They'll be a significant favorite in that one. And then week 2, and they always play this game fairly early in the year, but week 2 this year on the road at Florida. Now, Florida was bad last year. We all know that. They beat Florida last year at home, 20-13, a big win for Kentucky. This year they got to go to Gainesville. Florida's got a brand new coaching staff. They bring Billy Napier up from the Group of 5, firing Dan Mullen towards the end of last season. They've got some quarterback questions. Emory Jones has transferred away. I guess they're going to go with Anthony Richardson. He had a couple of starts last year, did not play well. His touchdown to interception ratio last year, he had something like 7 or 8 touchdowns and 5 or 6 interceptions. I mean, it was not good. Didn't completed, had a lower completion percentage than Emory Jones. Now, he's very athletic. He can run around, and he'll have a lot more practice time, I guess, with the ones leading up to this year. So we'll see how he does. But this is a game Kentucky can win. Will they win it? I don't know. Kentucky might be favored in this game, especially Florida plays Utah week 1. So Florida doesn't get a warm-up game. Kentucky does. There's a reason NFL teams like preseason games. Now, the players hate them, but there's a reason coaches and owners like preseason games in the NFL, and it's because it gives you an opportunity to see what you have, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where do you need to swap players out at, things like that, before you start the quote-unquote real season. You don't get that in college unless you kind of schedule a cupcake week 1, and then maybe you sort of look at that as a preseason type of game. Kentucky gets that with Miami of Ohio. Florida does not. They have to play Utah, who won the Pac-12 last year. And Utah can 100% come into Gainesville and beat Florida. I'm not saying they will, but so it's a good time to catch Florida here because they don't, it's not like they can spend all season preparing for Kentucky because they play a nobody week 1. They've got to worry about Utah. You play them there. It'd be a great game. Big boost if Kentucky can beat Florida 2 years in a row. We'll see. That game's Saturday, September 10th. Then you have another non-con game against Youngstown State. The Penguins. Again, another game where Kentucky should be a significant favorite and should win without a problem. Northern Illinois. Now, they beat Georgia Tech last year, so they're not afraid to play and beat a Power 5 team. Kentucky ain't Georgia Tech, though. You get them at home, you should win that game without a problem. At Ole Miss. Not an easy game. Not an easy game. Lane Kiffin's offense is no joke. Now, they lose Matt Corral, but they've done really well in the transfer portal in the offseason. You have to play them there. This is a tough game. I look at this right now as kind of a toss-up game here. It wouldn't surprise me if Ole Miss was a 3-point favorite. It wouldn't surprise me if Kentucky was a 3-point favorite. I think it's kind of a toss-up right now. Then you come back home and take on South Carolina, year 2 for them under Frank Beamer. And, of course, they have Spencer Rattler at quarterback now. Quarterback was their biggest problem last year. Now, they had a bunch of problems at a lot of different positions, but quarterback was the biggest one. I think they played 4 or 5 different quarterbacks last year. They're not going to have that issue this year. I know Spencer Rattler got benched at Oklahoma, but he was benched for Caleb Williams, who's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. He's not going to get benched at South Carolina. If Caleb Williams can sort of get it together between his ears because his personality rubs some people the wrong way, if he can get that straightened out, I think he can be a good college football player. Now, he's not going to have the talent at South Carolina that he had at Oklahoma, but I still think he can be an okay quarterback in the SEC. We'll see. You get him at home. This is a game Kentucky needs to win. This game and the Tennessee game are big games for Kentucky. You got to win. You got to win those games. You want to make the New Year's Six Bowl? Kentucky fans want to make a New Year's Six Bowl bad, real bad. You have to win these games, okay? Because there's some games on here you're probably not going to win. So you got to win these. You got to win these games. Mississippi State at home, who beat you last year for no reason at all. You got to win that game. It's a home game. Beat Mississippi State. You should. Then your bye week. Bye week come pretty good time, just about right in the middle of the season and right before a game at Tennessee. So that give your defense a week to rest up before Tennessee tries to run 110 plays on you. Now, the good news is Tennessee doesn't have a defense and doesn't even pretend to, but you're going to have to find a way to slow them down some. You can't give up 45 points to them like you did last year. If they score 45 on you again, you'll lose again. Kentucky is not a team that's built for shootouts. It's not. Kentucky needs to win games, 35-21, 27-20, things like that. They're just not built to win shootout games against air raid teams like Josh Heupel's Tennessee team. You got to find a way to slow that offense down, or you're going to take your second loss in a row to Tennessee. That's a tough game there on the road at Neyland. And you play at Missouri, again, a game you should win. You'll be favored in that one. Vanderbilt, worst team in the SEC. You'll be a big favorite in that one. And then you play Georgia at home. And I know Kentucky wants to win this game really, really bad. And they could. Anybody can win any game on any given day. But you were really good last year, and there was just nothing you could do against Georgia. And, I know Georgia lost a lot on defense, but look at how they've recruited. It's not going to be as big of a drop-off on defense, I think, as a lot of people are expecting. The inside linebacker position at Georgia is going to be an issue, but the defensive line is going to be almost or as good as it was last year. Jalen Carter, in my opinion, is better than Jordan Davis, who people couldn't stop talking about last year. And Jalen Carter was his backup last year. He'll be starting this year. Outside linebackers are fine. The secondary for Georgia is in better shape going into this season than it was last season. And offensively, Georgia should be fine. You get the quarterback back, whether that's good or bad. We can argue about that another day, but Stetson Bennett comes back. All the wide receivers are back except for George Pickens and Tremaine Burton. All the tight ends are back. And you don't even have to know anything about college football at all to know that Georgia's going to have a couple of NFL running backs. So, well, we'll see. Georgia will be favored even though it's a home game for Kentucky, but clearly Kentucky has a chance to win that game. I just don't think too many people are going to be picking Kentucky to win that game. And then the last game of the regular season, just like every year, your in-state rival Louisville from the ACC, who you beat last year. And Scott Satterfield has been a disappointment there. He may be running out of time there too. Don't think he'll get fired this year unless the wheels completely fall off and go 3-9 or something like that. But I think he's running out of time at Louisville. You can help put one of those nails in the coffin with another win over Louisville at the end of the regular season. And then, of course, the SEC Championship on Saturday, December 3rd. Can Kentucky make it to the SEC Championship game? Well, they could. You probably need not only would you need to beat Georgia, you would probably need to lose no more than one other SEC game, because even if you beat Georgia, that would probably be the only loss they end up with. It's hard to see Georgia going worse than 11-1. So if you beat them, that you can't lose. You'd have to. Well, you could lose one game, but if you lost two games, even if you beat Georgia, then you wouldn't win the East. So, but we'll see. I think a bigger deal for Kentucky would be, can they go, because they were 9-3 last year. Can you go 10-2 and get into that New Year's Six bowl? You could. You'd have to win. You'd have to beat Florida. That's a big one. You probably need to sweep your games against the West, which is Ole Miss and Mississippi State. If you do that, if you beat Florida and you sweep the West, you could lose on the road at Tennessee and lose to Georgia and still be 10-2. So that would be one path potentially to a New Year's Six game, right? But in that scenario, you got to beat Florida, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. If you beat either Tennessee or Georgia, then that would give you some leeway. You could take a loss maybe on the road at Ole Miss. I think it's possible Kentucky could make a New Year's Six game. They need more offensively, Kentucky does. Good lines of scrimmage, good running backs, upgraded quarterback play last year with Will Levis versus what they've had in years past under Stoops. But it seems like the offense, especially when it comes to throwing the ball, would need to take a step or two forward for Kentucky to go from 9-3 to 10-2 in a potential New Year's Six bowl. We'll see. Y'all can let me know in the comments down below what you think Kentucky's record will be in 2022. Again, I'll do my prediction videos starting in June. But let me know down below. What's Kentucky going to do in 2022? What's their record? And who are they going to lose to? Appreciate you all watching, and have a good morning.